Guitar Business Radio is the podcast for the business of guitar, where you'll always get no reviews, no demos, and no idle chatter. From players to CEOs and in between. If you have a professional or business connection to the world of guitar, this show is your window to insight and information you won't get anywhere else. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown, and I approve this message. So let's get to it. From Guitar Business Media, welcome to the 48th episode of GBR, where we have a lot of fun getting serious about the business of guitar. And for those of you who are still catching up on old episodes, in our special New Year's show, which came out last week in episode 47, we had some rather inspiring clips from 10 of our previous guests on the show. The nice thing about doing those kinds of shows every now and then is that it gives you kind of a sampler of some of those episodes that you may have missed. And I imagine every now and then we'll do something like that to promote those shows, and also because there are times when we just have to do some kind of reruns of a sort because of scheduling conflicts or whatever. But we are here every week, and we have been for the last 48 weeks. And really, it seems like a lot to me, a lot. But I'm afraid my exuberance is tamped down a bit when I look at other successful podcasts that are like on episode 200 or 600. I mean, wow. Hard to imagine, but I don't know. Who knows? But here we are, and because we have a long interview with Bill Asher coming up, I'm going to keep the front end to a minimum here and just float right into something completely different. So Bill Asher is the founder and operator of Asher Guitars and Lap Steels. He's been at it for over 35 years. His clientele is literally a who's who in the guitar world. He's made quite a name for himself, building both innovative lap steels and electric guitars, all with a unique Asher look and feel. He has quite a story to tell, so let's not waste another minute as Bill Asher joins us right here and right now. Hey, Bill. It's great to hear your voice. I haven't heard it yet, but it's great to have you on GBR. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, it's been a while, and certainly, we've known each other a bit over many years, and I don't think we've probably ever met in person, but I think that's coming up pretty soon here when the NAMM show shows up in a couple of weeks.
You'll be coming down, so you're going to put yourself through a few days on the floor.
Yeah, I'm going to drive the 15 minutes it takes me to get over there. And hopefully I'm going to pay through the nose for parking, which I'll gladly do. And that'll be it. So I'm not going to shell out for the hotel room, but I'll definitely be there, and it'll be great to see you. But let's start off the way we always do on GBR and talk a little bit about what we always used to call the foundational stuff, historical stuff. And you've got a great story, and I know a little bit about it. But I want to ask you, when you kind of go back to the time that you were growing up, everybody has something at that time that has had an impact on their later life, on their work, their profession, their business, and that sort of thing. So I guess I want to ask you, as you remember back, what were some of the things that really impacted you the most, that made a difference in helping you get to where you are today?
Well, you mean even before I started thinking about guitars? Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends, in the 70s when I was growing up in an elementary school, rock and roll was still very big in the scene. And I grew up listening to a lot of great bands, like Led Zeppelin was one of my favorite bands, and Clapton, and I listened to Jeff Beck quite a bit. And the music that me and my friends listened to and loved were very guitar-driven bands and music. And so pretty quickly into, late elementary school, I was very into the idea of taking guitar lessons. And so I started playing guitar. Friends of mine in school, my buddy Wes and Phil Kentner from the Bay Area, we used to jam and put a garage band together pretty quickly, and that happened like early high school. So I think that was my first influence into, the guitar itself, was just learning to play and learning Rolling Stones tunes and trying to, I think we all, who got into guitar, Purple Haze was one of the first cool licks we might all try to learn.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that's what turned me on to guitar, through the music culture in LA and friends here and playing music as a young kid.
And did you, thinking in terms of your interest in working on these things, was there some pivotal time that influenced you early on to move in that direction?
Yeah, that actually happened in high school. I mean, I grew up with a very artistic family. My mom was an artist and an actress, and my dad was a writer. And so in school, especially come high school and my junior and senior years in high school, I struggled with academics, and I loved the arts. I had a great ceramics teacher, Po Lau, in early high school. And that's when I started learning kind of the serious techniques of certain art forms. It wasn't just, he was a serious potter, and so he was the type who would take your pieces and cut them in half until you could finally get the walls of your vessel nice and even and holding your body correctly. And so there was a lot of technique to it, which I found challenging and a lot of fun. I moved schools, and the new high school I had gone to in West LA, University High School, didn't have a proper ceramics department, so I took wood shop, and that was the pivotal moment. So
the wood.
I moved into wood shop, and I took it in last half year of 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Mr. Rosenthal was my wood shop teacher, and at Uni High in West LA, University High School, they had a stellar wood shop. And right across from the wood shop was the auto mechanics shop. So they just had a lot of the arts and stuff there, and the mechanics, and people were learning trades, which is kind of where I was going when I hit my senior years. I loved guitars. I loved this woodworking class. I was acing wood shop, and I was getting C's in all my other classes. So I figured I definitely had a natural skill for working with my hands. And in your senior year, you could choose your own woodworking project. I had already built a couple lamps and a small table, and I actually got pretty ambitious in 11th grade and built an armoire to hold my guitars. I had a 77 Strat, a black one, big headstock era, which was influenced by Hendrix. I loved watching Hendrix play.
Right.
And I had the guitar that I wanted to start building in wood shop, and Mr. Rosenthal said, I have never been asked by a student to build a guitar in here yet. And he said, do you have a guitar that you can bring in for me to see? And I said, well, yeah, it would be an electric. I mean, I don't think there's a chance to build an acoustic instrument here, but I brought in my Strat, and he took a look at it and said, I think we can do the body, but you're going to have to maybe go buy a neck somewhere because that looks very complicated, and there's mechanisms inside the neck in the fretting, and so it's very specific. So that was my senior project. I templated out my Fender Strat. I went into he had a big room, long room that was floor to ceiling, 8-foot boards of different hardwoods like walnut and alder and maples and rosewoods. And I was becoming really familiar with lots of woods, but knew nothing about tone woods and guitars and what to choose. So I just went up to the coolest looking piece of wood I saw in there, which was a plank of purple heart. And I was like, this is purple. This is the coolest looking wood. I want to make it out of that, which we traced it out. And and most people listening, it's a pretty dense, heavy hardwood. So it was made for a very heavy Strat body, but I did it with tighter roundovers, more like an early Telecaster roundovers. I did do the belly cut on there, but I left the arm cut off. And even at the time then with my first instrument where I had changed the body shape a little bit from a stock Strat, and I had already known that I wanted to design my own pick guard. And so I had started making it looking pretty slightly different than a typical Fender knockoff. I was getting already experimental with trying to design some of my own shapes and putting it together and all that. So that sent me to Guitar Center because I needed a neck for this thing.
Right.
At the time, Wayne Charvel, remember Wayne?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, he was selling aftermarket parts at the time.
Yeah.
So I went to the Hollywood Guitar Center on Sunset Boulevard and walked in looking for parts, and they took me to the part area, and there were lots of bridges and pickups, and Seymour Duncan was very big already at the time, and pulled down a couple of the guitar necks, and there was a really nice Charvel maple Strat neck with a Purple Heart truss rod fill at the headstock. You know how they have the plug there?
Really?
I was like, this is meant to be.
I guess, huh?
Bought the neck, took it to class the next Monday, and we got the neck mounted to the guitar body, and that was pretty exciting. So that was the start of it.
Yeah. Wow. Boy, that's exciting. So, okay, so you get out of school. What happened between then and the time that you sort of really got into the business? Yeah,
well, I was obviously very happy to be graduated.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was thrilled to be out of high school. It was a chore and a half for me to get through it. And so my parents were at a point where they said, look, if you want to bypass college, you're going to have to come up with a trade. You're going to have to come up with something, and we'll give you a year. If you want to take a year off from after you graduate high school, before you go to college, if you can find a good job that's got a future for you, then by all means you can go the route of just learning a trade. So my dream was to build guitars, which who knew if that was ever going to really happen for me. And I had this Purple Heart, nicely shaped, fine sanded up to 320 and oiled with Danish oil and a nice neck on it. No strings yet. I didn't know how to wire it up and where to put the bridge so it played in tune. So I went to my local music store, West LA Music. When I walked in there with the guitar and asked if they could help me, if they had a repair guy there, they quickly said, go out our door, go down the back street and turn to the right, and you'll see a little guitar sign up top of this building. It says L&M Guitar Repair. And there's a guy there named Jeff. Go talk to him. So I walked out, entered his little business over there, and he was a big old boy from Kentucky. And I had showed him the guitar neck and body, and I said, hey, sir, I'm just graduated high school. I built this in wood shop, and I'd like to pay you to finish the work that I don't know how to do, the wiring and everything. And he said, you made this in high school? Yeah, right down the street here, West LA at Uni High. He said, really? Oh, that's pretty good. I said, well, I bought the neck. He goes, yeah, no, I figured that, but yeah, this is heavy, nice piece of Purple Heart you have here, but boy, it looks really clean and really nice. He goes, yeah, we can finish this up. This will be a good playing guitar. And then I started asking if there's any way I could come down and watch you while you work on it. I'm not looking to get paid or anything. I love guitars and I'd love to learn the craft of it. And his eyes kind of rolled back a little bit. Oh yeah, I've heard this before, And he said, well, let me think about that. I'm busy right now. It'll maybe be about a week, and here, let's write. So he wrote up the job. We added up a bunch of parts that I was going to need, and I found some Bill Lawrence pickups that he had in his shop. He had a pair of these blade humbuckers that Bill Lawrence made.
Oh.
And yeah, they were black faced pickups with the thin blades.
Yeah, I remember those. Sure.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's different. That's not your
Of
typical
course.
looking Les Paul pickup. So I was like, yeah, those look
That's
cool.
why I see them on your guitars today, or something very similar to that.
Yeah, I did design my own blade pickup. And, yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So he then wrote it up, and I left, and I was just hoping he was going to call me, not that it was finished, but that he was starting to work on it. And sure enough, he did make that call, and he said, hey, we'll be starting on your guitar tomorrow. Do you want to meet me down here at the shop at 9 o'clock and just hang for like maybe an hour or two? We'll see how it goes. And that day lasted 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you kept going to the shop, and how did that manifest?
So I was in there, customers were kind of coming in and out, and I just really kind of stayed out of his way. And when he had time and he was working on the guitar, I was kind of by the bench and only asked a couple little questions here and there and just watched him work. And then I offered to go pick up some lunch, and I was like, man, I'll run errands for you. I'll sweep the floors. I'll put your drill bits away if you'll let me hang out here and watch you work. And I think he saw that I was really fired up about it. And Jeff looked at me and said, come back tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And so we did that day after day, and pretty soon I was installing my own set of tuning machines on the guitar, and he helped me get the plastic, and I picked some white 3-ply pickguard material and designed the pickguard and made it for that. And he did I paid him to do all the wiring, electronics, install the bridge. And after a couple weeks, that guitar was built and strung up, and I was taking it home, playing it, taking pictures of it, flipped out. My parents were like, wow, you actually works. It plugs in. It played great. Friends were, I was thrilled. And then at that point, it had been a few weeks, and I told Jeff, I said, I explained my year off that I was given before I'd be forced to pick some kind of college to go to pursue some type of career. And I said, man, if you would, give me the opportunity to work here, I need no money. I live at home, and I'll just be a help, and if I ever become valuable enough to pay me a minimum wage, you could think about it. So it was a win-win. He was like, okay, let's do this. We got along really well, and I apprenticed under him for 4 years. And I would say even after the first year, he was letting me open up shop and starting to, I was writing up repairs. I knew how to evaluate a job when it came in the door, and I would bring in a Telecaster, and frets were buzzing, or the open notes were buzzing. Was it bowed neck, or was it the nut had been worn and cut too low from the strings? And so at that time, after the first and going into the second year, I was doing lots of setups and fret dressings and shaping new nuts and cleaning electronics. And he was like, man, your eye's better than mine. I'm letting you install all the tuners now, because, if you're not paying attention on a 3-on-a-side headstock or 6-in-line stuff, and, I've even gone to guitar shows and seen professionally built guitars with tuners quite not straight and square and perfect. And so, it was learning all the skills of just starting from ground zero and restrings and setup and intonation. And, that's it started. And that was 1982, and summer of 82, I graduated. So that June I started. And, 4 years of working under Jeff Lunsford was what taught me the ropes of the guitar repair business mainly. Yeah.
Did you apprentice, or did you ever make any money working for him, or was it just
so I worked the whole summer for free.
Mm-hmm.
So that was about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
And then he started paying me like on a job basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would say, hey, yeah, go ahead and install those cloisons on that Telly over there, or go dress the frets on that Les Paul. And he had work orders he would give me, and he would pay me a little percentage, and then it very quickly worked into full time.
Oh, okay.
After the first 14, 15 months I was there every day.
Yeah.
Jeff Lunsford came from Kentucky. He was like a computer and sound engineer for a while, was in the Army, then he started building bridges and he was an intense guy. He was very, very smart, well-educated, read books like crazy. He was kind of a fun person to apprentice under because he knew a lot about everything. And so I learned a lot from him about how to run a business, how to deal with the bookkeeping. And back then it was the Yellow Page guy would come in and you have to negotiate your advertising.
Boy, that's pages. A flash from the past. Yeah, really. I remember those.
Yeah, now I'm on Instagram. But, it was a great learning experience for me. And after being there for 4 years, at that point, he and I were like a full team. I was doing Floyd Rose installations by then because it was into the 80s, and we went to the Floyd Rose installation seminar to be a authorized installation center for Floyd. And we went there. He was the one running the installation weekend, and I did that kind of stuff. And I remember, and I think it was about late 82, early 83, Lloyd Baggs walked in the shop with his prototype LB6 saddle transducer pickup. Mm. And so now that I look back on it, I go, man, I've been at it now 35 years, and all these people that I met early on back then, still in the industry. We were right next door to West LA Music, so that they sent a lot of work my way. It was a great experience. It was good and busy, and I was running a small business. And when Jeff left was in 86, 87, he had met Bob Dylan through his girlfriend who managed his property here. And they got to know each other, and he realized how skilled and smart Jeff was. So he hired Jeff to build his studio up in Malibu.
Oh, okay. All right. So then, where did that leave you, and what happened next?
Yeah, so Jeff came to the shop one day and sat me down and said, "Hey, I got some news. Bob Dylan's just hired me." I went, really?
Oh, my.
Okay, well, what are we going to do? So he went, "I want you to keep running this business. I think you're ready." It had been 4.5 years, and he's like, "I think I've taught you all you need to know. I think you're going to be way beyond what I ever was at some point." And so he said, "I'll just add up." He's like, "Look, the business was doing pretty well. We had a steady flow of repair clients, both professionals and players and kids from school, the high schools around bringing instruments in. And we were a Seymour Duncan dealer, LR Baggs dealer, all this Ernie Ball and Dario strings, and we sold pick guards and bridges and Floyds and Kahlers. There is a lot to it, and at that point I had gotten my head around it all, and he came up with a number that was affordable for me to just buy him out of all the parts and most all the tools. And I met with the landlord and signed a new lease, and bam. I think it was about a week later, I had the paint signing guy came out and take off L&M Guitar Repair and put on Asher Guitar Works.
And that was and that was really the start, huh?
Yeah.
That's what a wonderful story that is. So that's now we're talking about the late 80s. So that's 30 years ago, roughly. And so a lot has happened in those 30 years. For all of us, and dramatic changes. But so I'm kind of interested now as you move forward and you start developing, how would you describe some of the milestones along the way? And then maybe, a few of the challenges that you ran into that you had to solve and move on from.
Yeah. Well, once I started running the shop myself, and it was really all on my shoulders, I started looking around for other people to work with me. And I found a great guy by the name of Bobby Carlos, who had lived in San Diego, and he was working in sales at West LA Music. Don Griffin, what a great guy. I've known him. I still run into him every once in a while, who owned and ran West LA Music. And yeah, it was a great crew over there. But anyway, so Bobby came on board and as a repair guy because he had experience. And then Pat Wilkins, a lot of people know in this industry, he's one of the top production guitar painters.
Well, we know Pat's a great friend of the show, and Pat was actually on episode 2. It was like the second one, and done some other work with Pat. Pat's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had established a great shop location and a really good reputation already, and I brought Bobby Carlos on board, and then it was maybe a year or so later, Pat Wilkins was looking for space to work out of, and he'd been in the shop quite a few times, and I had a pretty good size front retail store and full back workshop. So Pat moved in, and so it was the three of us for quite a while there on Santa Monica Boulevard, doing, and then I started doing some custom building. Guys were coming in, and it was the era of, like, Schecter was around and Charvel was around. ESP obviously was doing some stuff, but there weren't, small boutique builders at that time at all.
No.
So it was pretty much shops like us were just doing, hot rod Strat builds for guys. And, this guy wants his old Jazz Master modified with some new pickups, or, guys would do, I built, I had probably at that time, I built about a handful of like custom Strat style guitars and, mostly some parts guitar style builds. And I'd always really wanted to design my own instrument, but in the late 80s, there really wasn't a big market for small name builders. It was really the big companies were still the only one kind of instrument people were interested in investing any kind of real money into.
Right.
But we did get some one-off custom build job. And then I got a little bit of burnt out on the retail scene. It was just, for me, I was 24 years old. I started when I was 18, so it was like 6 years of, being an apprentice and then running a small business. And I actually let loose of the shop in, I think it was, 86, 87, and it became a satellite shop for John Carruthers.
Oh, okay. All right.
Who was in Venice, who I knew at the time.
Right.
So I took a small break from running a business and the guitar work to work with a good buddy of mine who I grew up with in high school, Randy Miller, but they started that original New York Seltzer company. Remember that?
Sure.
Soda?
Of course.
Yeah. So I grew up with them. That lasted about 12 months. I was like, this is ridiculous. What am I thinking? Going to an office job, trying to just make a steady paycheck. I thought that was intriguing. I hadn't really done that since I left high school. I was working kind of, when you're running a business, you're working week to week, month to month, and adding everything up at the end and hoping there's some left over. So it was stressful for a young kid, and though I was so unhappy not doing guitar work and working at the soda company, it didn't matter how much money I was going to make there. So I quickly made a U-turn and talked to my friends over at Ace Music in Santa Monica.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I remember those.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah. Long time ago. I've forgotten about it, but it just reminded me.
I know. I can't believe it. It's been a while. A lot, like you said, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore, and West LA Music is gone too. Oh. But Ace had a small repair shop space in the back, and Hank and Jack, the two brothers that owned it, their philosophy was, we're a small store. It's not that easy to compete with the big stores like Guitar Center and West LA Music, but Hank Calvin was a great salesman, a great guitar player, and their whole thing was set up every guitar from Fender, from Martin, all of our guitars on the wall that we sell to guitar players have been set up, and they come with like a lifetime, as long as you own Ace Music, purchased Strat or Martin or Guild, it'll be set up for free. So I signed on to them and said, look, I'll run the repair shop in the back. I will set up all your stock instruments for the store as paying rent, and then I keep all my labor, and I'll help sell your guitar parts. So we had a great partnership like that for quite a few years. And then things ended there. I wanted to kind of move on and do my own thing. So I had my own shop at my home for a short stint. And then Bobby Carlos, who had worked for me back at the first shop, had been up with Rick Turner, doing repairs up with Rick in Topanga. So that was, where are we at now? That was 1993. Rick interviewed me for a job because at that point, Rick wanted to really design and build his Lindsey Buckingham model, one that he designed for Lindsey. It was at the time that he had started working on some other prototype models that he was getting into. So he's like, I need somebody to run this repair shop. He had the best of the best clientele, from Stanley Clark, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Jackson Brown. I mean, everybody was coming to him to work on instruments pretty much. It was a star-studded clientele he had. So I was thrilled to be there.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And, if I got to know Rick, I mean, he was just a wealth of knowledge. He was a contributing writer to the Guild of American Luthiers and wrote his article. It was Rick Turner, the Electronic Answer Man. He wrote about preamp designs that he did with the Alembic Company back when they were doing stuff for Phil Lesh and the Grateful Dead and building that company. I mean, Alembic basses and guitars that was probably, now that I think of it, they must be one of the first boutique.
Yeah, that was kind of a revolutionary brand. I always thought they were really kind of when you kind of look back, they sort of carved a path that was pretty unique.
Yeah, I was always really impressed by those instruments. I mean, I was a huge fan of wood in particular. I picked Purple Heart for my first guitar build, but I just loved the way that they designed and how they kind of made beauty. The wood's the star of the instrument, and the shapes that they did, and the inlay work, and the complex electronics was a big part of where Rick came into play there too. And so I worked for Rick Topanga for 3 years. Me and Bobby ran the repair department and handled all the incoming repairs and fret work. That's where I started doing a lot more acoustic restoration. I hadn't done neck resets until I met Rick Turner. He taught me how to do neck resets. I actually read the Brian Gallup neck reset article that he wrote for Guild of American Luthiers back in, it must have been like 96, maybe 94, 95, something like that. And Rick went through the whole thing with me on a few that he did. And by the time I left Rick's, I was doing major acoustic restoration. I had been introduced to David Crosby and reintroduced to Jackson. Jackson Brown had brought me some work at my first shop in Santa Monica early on, and then I think he found his way to Rick Turner again, and Rick definitely had more chops than I did. So when I started working for Rick, I got reintroduced to Jackson, and he said, all right, Billy, if you're going to be working on my guitars, there's this pickup system. It's called the Frap. I don't know if you're familiar with the Frap pickup systems. I go, well, yeah, I know that, Neil Young uses those, and, I've heard great things about it. He goes, well, you're going to have to learn how to install them. Because that's all I like. It's what's in all my guitars, and if you're going to be my guitar repair guy, you got to learn how to do this. So I met with Larry Craig and Neil's guy and learned the ropes around how to do these pickup installs that were a little bit tricky. Every instrument's a little different. You got to find the sweet spot of these top transducers, and it was technology that was designed by this guy Arnie Lazarus in the 1970s, and I think the early prototypes and stuff went into Neil Young's guitars, and guys like Jackson would show up and listen to Neil sitting there strumming on his D45 or old D28 and going, what's the biggest acoustic sound I've ever heard? How did that happen? So that got me started with Jackson, and that's now over 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah. And there's pictures. I've seen pictures of you and him on your website. A very young Bill Asher. Right?
Yeah, long hair, face. Yeah. So, yeah, Rick and I did a bunch of NAMM shows together. And like I said, it was like about a little over 3 years that I worked with Rick. And then at the time, late 96, early 97, he and his wife decided to move to Santa Cruz to move his company. And they had his son, Elijah, and they wanted to raise him in Northern California. So I bought Rick out of the shop and I continued on, and that's when Guitar Traditions happened. I moved the shop out of Topanga into Santa Monica, and then quickly hired, another tech. Sammy Sanchez was looking for a gig at the time, and he's another one of LA's like old school, great craftsman, guitar repair tech. Built some great Lindley style lap steels and was a great lap steel player as well. And he started doing repairs for me, and then Bobby Carlos was on board still. And so I started Guitar Traditions in late 96 and had that retail store up through 2001. And that was the era that really set me into designing my own line.
Okay.
Guitars.
I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that started. So how did you move that into fruition? What did it take to get you started building?
Well, as most people get into the guitar, like want to be a guitar guy scene, there's always room for repair techs. So I was so busy doing repairs, and I really wanted to start building. And I had been taking custom jobs, one-off jobs still at the shop there for local guys who just had ideas about what they wanted built and put together. But it wasn't until I got a phone call from Ben Harper in 1998. I get on the phone with Ben, and he says, "Hey, man, I've heard about you around town. I'm looking for somebody to work on designing an electric lap steel for me." He goes, "Would you be interested?" And I go, "Are you kidding? I'd love it, man. I love building instruments, but it's, coming up with something unique is what I'm looking for." And he said, "Well, are you familiar with Weizenborn guitars?" And I said, "Yes, I don't own one, but I've worked on a few. And my other tech here, Bobby Carlos, has a collection. He's got a few of them, and he's a good lap steel player, so I've jammed with him a little bit on." He said, and I said, "So what are you thinking?" He goes, "Well, I'd love to have like an electric version of a Weizenborn." I went, "Wow, an electric version of a Weizenborn. Well, man, what's the scale length on that, Ben?" He said 25 inches. I went, "Okay, so that's closer to guitar scale." And I said, "I just got this great piece of koa from a cabinet maker buddy of mine that had too much figure in it for the project he was working on." He handed it to me. And he said, "I bet you'll find a cool project for that." And I'm like, "Ben, I got some koa. Let's do like a Weizenborn shape, but I'll scale it down so it fits nice on the lap and, feels like an electric. We'll go 1 3/4 thick like a standard electric guitar and keep the Weizenborn scale length. And I could even do like a Weizenborn bridge and string it through the body. And we could then decide what pickups we want." He was like, whoa, hold on. What's your address? I'm coming down. He goes, "I talked to like 10 people on the phone." He was probably exaggerating, but about like coming up with this why. He's like, "You totally get it. You get it. I can tell." So a few days later, he's down at the shop and we're hashing out the ideas. And I had a full scale drawing for him on a nice, graph paper thing that I went and we had dinner and met on overlooking the design that I had drawn out to full scale for him. And that was where the prototype started, where I put my name on the headstock for like the first really unique guitar build of my career. And so he immediately, when that first prototype was done, he ordered 2 more for the road. And I think subsequently, he ordered 3, 4 more, and I started talking about it. Would he be interested in it as a signature model? He goes, "This instrument is so unique and amazing." He's like, "I don't endorse products. I just have always made it a point not to put my name on stuff. I get offered all the time in the music industry, but he's like, this, I'm thinking, let's do it. He's like, we've created something totally unique. I think it's the greatest modern day lap steel there is. There's nothing like it. So I was to the moon at that point. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So it became an official Ben Harper signature model. It went into another slight change and alteration from the very heavy Weizenborn influence to more of a Les Paul electronic and hardware layout is what his current signature model is. And so I was building those and selling them at the shop, going to some of the vintage guitar shows, and I started designing my offset body Strat model at the time.
But you really started. But you really started with the lap steel. What you're saying, right? That was really what got you going, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was excellent timing for me when that happened with Ben, because I had been at it over 15 years now.
Yeah,
and now it was 1998. There were Taylor Guitars was doing extremely well, and Collings was around. There were now more small reputation builders. The Fender Custom Shop was humming along, and so I could see, wow, okay, I've got my name on this. Ben Harper has serial number 001. So that lap steel, I actually numbered it and put my name on it and was like, okay, I don't know where it's going to go from here. This is the start.
So, and of course, as we all know, that has continued on, for all of these years, and it's been part of what you do. But how was it that you moved into the other instruments, and how did that work out?
Well, I love Strats and Tellys, and I was so used to modifying guitars for local studio players and musicians that I knew, there was a place to start making my own version of these classic instruments. Tom Anderson had already started his company, Anderson Guitar Works, and he was making these just killer, solid, super Strats for a lot of studio guys, and Crosby plays one, and I work on all his gear. So it was like, I could see myself doing my take on those early Strats and Tellys. And so I was like the Mosrite body shape to me. I like the extra curviness of it, and there was something about that. And so I just sat down with pencil and paper and on graph paper and just started drawing some full-scale body designs until I found something to my eye that looked really good. And that was my first S Custom. So it's an offset Strat-style body, a little bit more curve in the horns. I also like doing a deeper belly cut, like you find on like a early 57, 56 Strat, where they really made those nice contours and dishes really deep. And then I guess they got lazy when CBS took over in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and things started getting a little thicker and heavy. And so I was really into that kind of old school influence, but taking my own spin on design. I did not want to make parts guitars. I knew that. I wanted to design my own pick guards and design my own body shape and my own headstock and do something. And I'll tell you, it was a harder sell at first, I have to admit. Bill Nash with the Nash guitars and Don Grosh, those guys. And we're building, Strat, Telly style guitars and just doing a really, really good custom build, delivering those kind of instruments. But I wanted to do something unique. So that's where my S Custom first came into play, where I was doing my half guard, my offset bodies, and then I had always wanted to do a Telly. But my main influence on the Telly was to address what a lot of a lot of guitar players like, the simplicity and the vibe of the single cutaway, slab body, two pickup Telecaster. But neck pickup was kind of a little dark, a little bit flat sounding.
Yeah.
Telly bridge pickup, bright, punchy, twangy, great for cutting through and playing, if you could overdrive it, you could play some blues. I mean, Keith Richards never had too much trouble making a Tele rock out. So he started throwing humbuckers in the neck position, which led to my HT Deluxe finally. But, so I wanted to do a T model, so I came up with an offset T style, which I call my T Deluxe. Then I went to that old school thought of blade pickups like I had in my first guitar that Bill Lawrence had done.
And I got to tell you something. But way back when I first got to know you a little bit, this is probably 10 years ago or so. I was absolutely struck by one of your T-style guitar. It was a turquoise. It was kind of a turquoise color of some kind. I don't know if you remember back then, but it was a photo that we had gotten from you, and it had the blade pickup, and I had just I clipped that out, and I said, boy, this is a guitar I really want to have someday. And I just remember that instrument as being so just stunning looking. Of course, I've never played it, but I could look at it and say, this has got to be a great guitar. And because it was so great looking, just that color was so unusual. I'm sure you remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I had done a few turquoise, probably was, one of the ones I liked the woods and,
maybe it didn't sell, but I mean, I thought it was great.
Oh, I'm sure it's gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's gone.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so that T Deluxe became my first successful electric guitar model, and people love it because it is familiar looking. You can tell it's inspired by an early Leo Fender. I did the 6-in-line headstock. I designed my own headstock profile that people find, it's a good looking headstock. It doesn't look like anything else, and it's not too far out there. And it was more like the first prototype Teles with a snake head headstock, they call it, with the 3 on a side. And that was risky for me to do as building a Telecaster because Fender guys are pretty traditional, and so I've done well with that model, even though a lot of players really would prefer the 6-in-line headstock on a Tele style guitar. But that T Deluxe offers somebody a different feeling guitar with the blade pickup in the neck. I wanted to do a slightly wider, bigger bobbin wound with 42 gauge wire and an Alnico 5-bar magnet that would give you a much more bell tone clarity on a neck pickup and give you some nice sparkle on the top end response, which you don't get from the neck pickup of a Tele. And then the blade bridge pickup, I wanted, I wound that a bit hotter, and those are a bit bluesier, a little more mid-rangey sounding. So, and when you combine the two pickups in the middle in their in parallel position, they hum cancel and they sound a lot like a Tele. You lose a little bit of that extra girth and grit of the bridge pickup, and the nice top end response of the neck pickup, it just worked perfectly well. So it ended up being an extremely versatile 2-pickup guitar, which is what I was looking for. And just to push a little farther, I had met Don at Stellar Tone, and he was designing the tone stylers. And so I started using a tone styler in there as well, so you could shape the tones beyond just the 3-position switch. And then that's become something that I've kind of implemented into a lot of my guitars now. I do some of my own 3-position switches now that give people a bypass option and a mid-range cut and a standard guitar option. Or I have a 6-position tone styler that me and Don worked on the EQ settings of and stuff. So I love getting involved in all the aspects, be it the pickups, the hardware. I design my own lap steel bridges, and I do a lot of my own pickup winds now. I still use guys like Seymour Duncan, and I use Lawler. There's a lot of great artisans in our business making parts, and like Bill Callahan, I love his Fender Repro tremolo bridges, stay in tune so well and have a great feel. And so I've been just having so much fun, like just in the industry, meeting the other craftspeople out there, getting influences from, and at this point I've designed a whole line of guitars and lap steels, and I've also got a signature model with Mark Ford, which was a thrill. When he started touring with Ben Harper, we got to meet. I started doing his fretwork and setups for the road, and then when he started back with the Black Crows, he came to me to design his signature model P90S model guitar that we do together. And that was a really cool thing too. It was just another thing like Ben, sitting there talking to a musician who loves all these different guitars, but man, the combination of this one and that one, and in Mark's case, he had a 56 reissue Strat that he loved and a Les Paul Special that he liked the tone of, but he's like, man, I just feel so much more comfortable on a Strat. I like having a trem, to work with on stage. And so I was like, yeah, let's combine those two. So his signature model is one of my offset S bodies with dual P90s, mahogany body, maple rosewood neck, and Sweet 90 pickups, which were designed by a friend of his, Tom Short, who, great guy. He was an engineer, it was his main business, and then he made pickups for a while. He's not doing it anymore, but that became our Sweet 90 pickup, which I continue to make now myself. And so it's been extremely creative, and I think I have about 8 or 10 guitar model and lap steel models now in my line. And like we said, going back all these years, and number one with Ben in 98, and let's see, just the other day I numbered 1,114.
Wow.
Just the other day.
That's exciting. Well, let's talk. That kind of brings us up to more current times. So let's shift a little bit and talk about, as we like to say, the here and now. And in a couple of weeks, we've got 2019 Winter NAMM. You're going to be there. So let's talk a little bit about that and what you're going to be showing us there, what I'm going to come by and see you, and what am I going to see when I get there?
Right. Cool. Well, this year I'm actually bringing more guitars than ever and the best stuff I've ever designed and built.
I would hope so.
Really excited. I'm so excited about it. We actually got a nice size open corner booth, so we put down a little more of an investment this year and got a 10 by 20. And so
that's great.
I'll be bringing I've got my signature models that I'm highlighting. I've got some beautiful ones, Mark Ford models. I've got a couple relics that we're doing with him, a black and a Icelandic blue, and his traditional TV yellow Mark Ford style model that he plays. So I've got those, and I've got a couple of great Ben Harper models designed up for the show, my T Deluxes, and I've got a couple new things. Now, I've been building. One of the things I'm excited about is my electrosonic model, which is my neck through body electric guitar, which I construct neck through style like the Ben Harper lap steel guitars. And I'd always wanted to do an electric guitar set neck. And then when I got into the neck through concept, and the lap steel has so much sustain, and the resonance is so great, and I was a big fan of the alembic stuff like we talked about earlier. So I was like, man, I should do the guitar that way too. So my electrosonic model is neck through body, and then I actually string it through the body as well over a back tailpiece, different than a Les Paul, but it does have a tunematic, vintage tunematic style bridge with a back tailpiece, but the back tailpiece I designed mounts tight onto the top, and then the strings come out through the body over this nice round rolled tailpiece, and then it gives you just perfect nice string angle up to the tunematic bridge. And then that guitar is built with like a sloped cutaway, so you have nice access to the upper frets, and I do it with humbuckers or P90s, and that one we've also now just started doing a carved top version. So I have my first carved top coming to the show.
Wow, that's exciting.
And I have two, actually. I have a solid body carved top of the electrosonic, and just this summer I got commissioned by a local player here to do a semi-hollow version with an F-hole. So I have that one coming, and so I'm thrilled about the new high-end carved electric neck-through body guitars. And then other than that, and those are up in the, $5,000 to $8,000 range. These are my kind of like premier hand builds, and they're a very solid, resonant, killer playing electric guitar. Great for bottleneck slide too. I think the string through body and neck through concept really gives you, and it's a 25-inch scale, so the same scale length as the lap steel, or obviously right in there between a Fender and a Gibson, like the PRSs, I think, land at 25. So yeah, I've got some beautiful flame tops of those coming. So excited about that.
So you should have a pretty full booth, I would imagine. Sounds like you got a lot of product coming.
Yeah, I have. I'm hoping to bring at least 28 instruments.
Wow. That's gonna be. You got to have any wall space left?
Yeah, I know. We pack them in. It's good. But and we have then on the more affordable line. I mean, I know how this is. It's like the guitar playing is a passion for people, and hand making instruments is expensive. I mean, there's just a lot of time and labor, and especially when you're buying the kind of high-end materials and parts, and what we do to make guitars. The bench time and the cost of doing business adds up. And I've always wanted to introduce stuff that's affordable when I can. On my lap steel line, we have an Electro Hawaiian Junior, which I do make overseas in Korea at a factory there that does really high-end guitar work. Mm-hmm. So they're making our Electro Hawaiian Junior. We've got a bunch of cool colors. We've got a Lake Placid blue, cherry red, a tobacco burst, a vintage white, and a gold top.
Nice.
Robert Randolph plays our lap steel, and this guy AJ Gent. They come from the Sacred Steel scene, and they're both doing their own solo stuff now. It's been great working with those guys.
What's the price point for those imported?
Those are retail on them is just about $1,040, but the street price and where you can buy them on the website and Musician's Friend as a dealer, those are $855 for these electric lap.
That's reasonable.
Steels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they are solid. They're
well, I'm sure they would be if something that you designed and brought over. Let me ask you a little more esoteric kind of question, because this is a business show. What do you hope to accomplish at the NAMM show for your business? What do you hope to walk away from there with?
I'll tell you what you should expect from the NAMM show. I don't always get it, but these big trade shows like NAMM are really there to, obviously they're to expose manufacturers to dealers around the world, and you're showing off your new products and stuff, and you really want to establish your year's worth of orders at a show like that. I mean, that's really what it should be used for. I've never done quite that well, but this year I'm really, really looking forward to opening up a handful more dealers. I did just purchase a CNC machine this year, so that now my designs, we're learning all the programming. My wife, Jessica, handles all of our marketing, and she's very studious and a smart girl. And so she has been going and learning the CAD programming, and I'm learning to run the CNC machine. And so it's something that now we can, I've been averaging about 75 guitars a year.
Not bad.
For a bit now, yeah.
For a small shop, not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, and I think with the CNC, which speeds things up in the areas where there's just a lot of labor and not as much finesse needed, and then where you need the accuracy and precision on neck shaping and fret slotting and truss rod cavities and things. I think the CNC machine plays an integral part in any big or small shop at this day and age. If you want to be competitive and maintain that level of perfection that guitar players and instrument makers expect, it's been a great tool to learn. I've had it for a year now.
Oh, that long? Yeah.
Just about 11. Well, we bought it, early last year.
Yeah.
And so we've already been running bodies and necks, and it's doing it's a great job. So now I'm hoping to pursue NAMM and get some more dealers interested and hopefully have a year of 100 guitars next year.
Well,
and the NAMM platform and space to really show everything that you've got. I mean, that's kind of the idea of those big trade shows, man. You want to lock in your orders for the year if you can.
Well, I think that's a really good way to look at it. It's a pretty sizable investment for anybody to go, for especially smaller companies to go in there, and you got to plunk down, and you want to be able to feel that you got some ROI out of it. You know that you got a benefit that you can some way kind of measure it a little bit. Sometimes it's hard, but I think you've really got the right idea. Do you have any concerns, or are there any lingering aspects of the big shows like that are lingering, or you're feeling 100%
like
positive?
You said, it is a big it's an investment and a risk for small companies to do these shows. I mean, I'm putting out well over $10,000 to do the show.
Yeah, that's easy to do.
I'm not even flying. Most people have to fly and all the, so then it ends up being a lot more expensive.
Of course.
And, it's very hard on you physically and mentally doing those shows and financially. And if you walk out of the show and didn't recoup your investment and get some headway into the new year, it is demoralizing sometimes. I mean, I've had shows in the past, like in 2008 when the market tanked. I've exhibited the NAMM show about 5 times now. I've had some years that were stellar, sold everything I brought and orders into the year. I mean, that's really what's been happening for me the last few years. But early on, boy, man, I had years I walked out of the show exhausted, beat up, and like, what am I going to do now? I don't have enough orders to keep me busy for the next 6 months or 3 months. I mean, it is a tough business.
And some people turn to medication.
Yeah, there's always a beer or two in my cooler at the end of the day. But it's you gotta be. I've been pretty tenacious, I think, and persistent, and just stuck with it. And I do repairs when guitar sales are slow. I've got a steady flow of repair clients that keep me busy. I mean, a lot of the guy like Ben Harper, I handle all his stuff for the road, and Jackson Brown, and I've got some guitars in for Sheryl Crow right now that are the prototype Gibsons for her, and pickup systems, and that I've been doing for Jackson all these years. I've started doing for Sheryl, and looks like I'm going to be working with Neil Young now too. He's on board with me getting into his stuff because his tech Larry Craig has been off the repair bench scene for a little while now. So it's exciting stuff for me. I mean, I'm been at this a long time, and I love what I do. And this year at NAMM, I hope to expand the guitar and lap steel side with new dealers. And
well, so I'll tell you, you've spelled it out, and you've kind of at the same time answered what is usually my sort of wrap up question. On the larger horizon, do you see any bigger opportunities or potential challenges coming down the road? Anything?
That's a good question, actually, because I'm 54 now, right? Mm-hmm. Part of me has always wanted to get bigger. I've always admired Paul Reed Smith as an electric guitar maker and as a businessman, and as somebody who's brought his electric guitar company to a level that's with the big players, but he's not like an over-manufactured company. I mean, I'm amazed how many guitars some of these companies pump out. But it is, I'm really now decided that I would like to stay at a very comfortable level of builds a year. I don't want a whole bunch of employees. I don't want to go that route of growing bigger into a big space and having 10, 15 employees and building hundreds of guitars a year. I think I'm going to stick at this kind of boutique level and limit the amount of guitars I make. Maybe it'll be, I don't know, I kind of see like a sweet spot at maybe 120 guitars a year.
That's a good number. That's 10 a month.
And yeah. do something like that where I can maintain this small family business and raise my kids, and they're in middle school and we're already saving for college, and so I can't quit yet. And so I see myself just plugging away and doing my restoration and guitar repair work and designing and building these guitars and lap steels at hopefully 100 and something a year and keep it at that. I love acoustic guitar making. I've done a good number of them over the years, especially as I had help. I worked with Jim Dugan for a while, who's a great acoustic builder who started with me. And I think as I get into my 60s and all that, I actually might start looking into slowing down on the electric builds and start getting more into acoustic building. So I think I'll always be a craftsman, and I'll always stick with the guitar world. But I definitely see, like, thinking long term, you're asking me, I think that's probably where I'll go, is build less and actually add acoustic building to what I do.
Well, I always tell people, at the end of the show, it's like the broken record, sort of stay focused on the bigger destination, but, keep all the options open on how you're going to get there. And life will be a lot more fun. And you have a great story, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And I know our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing from Bill Asher. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, Bill.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. This was great connecting with you again. And thanks so much. And I enjoyed it.
And we'll touch base in a couple weeks. For those people who are listening to this show, 6 months from now, that already happened. But these shows go on forever. But I'll see you soon. And once again, thanks for coming on.
All right. We'll see you at NAMM.
Okay.
See you then.
So, what did you think of the interview with Bill Asher? We always want to hear from you, and you can do that easily through the contact page on our website at guitarbusinessradio.com, or on Facebook and Twitter at Guitar Business, or email us directly at contact@guitarbusinessradio.com. And of course, as you might expect, if none of that works for you, just call us on our GBR hotline at 888-777-2404. You can do that right now if you like, or later. Operators are standing by somewhere. So I first got to know Bill at least a decade ago, and so I've been able to watch over time the steady evolution of his work. And I say steady, even though it rarely seems steady when we're going through it, because there are always bumps in the road and not everything falls into place the way we think it ought to. But the key is to view things over time, looking at where you started compared to where you are now and what's been accomplished in the grand scheme of things. The truth is, it can be overwhelming, in as much as there's usually so much that has happened, often to our surprise when we look at it that way. And as I was listening to Bill recap so much of his own history, I could certainly see the depth of his work, but also, even more pronounced, was what seemed like the very steady pace of growth and development that has taken place over a long period of time. And I'm sure that just in this 1 hour, we only scratched a little bit of the surface, but I think you can kind of extrapolate from that what his career has looked like. My guess is that while there were most likely some bumps in the road along the way, look at all the pieces of the puzzle that have ultimately fallen into place and are still falling. For me, I think one of the big lessons here goes hand in hand with a lot of the things I've talked about here and written about as well. And that just has to do with how we view things, how we think about what we observe about ourselves and the world around us. And the amazing part about that is the choice we have when it comes to what we think. I know I've had plenty of moments in my life when I felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything, and somehow that was, for the moment, defining who I was, which was false, of course, but that's often what we do. So as kind of a preventative measure, I take a few minutes at the end of each day and try to recount all of the accomplishments, or at least most of them, from the tiniest to the largest. And if there are no large things, I'm okay with a bunch of small things because they all add up to something significant. And believe me, there are always accomplishments. You just have to be open to seeing them. And it's hard to argue with accomplishment in any form or quantity. So what I got from Bill was a very positive view of his work over a long period of time, focusing on all the accomplishments and knowing all the while that there's all kinds of opportunity to do more and better in the future. And that's got to feel pretty good. So I think we can all be on some version of that path. And to accomplish that, I would, of course, strongly encourage you to stay positive, stay focused on your destination, but keep all those options open on how you're going to get there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again on episode 49. And that's it for this episode of Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for being with us. You can stay tuned and stay in touch at guitarbusinessradio.com.